Denise, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. Okay, there, I've been trying to do that. Thank you so much, Julieanna. That was beautiful presentation. I'm with you. I eat whole food plant-based. I also teach this to a lot of people 50 and older. And I want to ask a question that sometimes people pose to me that I don't have the greatest answer for. So let's say I'm talking about fiber, and I'm talking about how important it is to eat fiber so that our bacteria eats that and gives us our short-term fatty acids like butyrate. And they say to me, but what about these people that we know who are 90 years old and have been eating the standard American diet, and they're not making a lot of those short-term fatty acids, and they're doing great? And I don't know how to answer that.
I would answer that with, that's anecdote, that's one person, and we're looking at the statistics. And if you look at the statistics, they may be the outlier, the lucky one. And do you really want to go with that? Like, do you want to try to be lucky, or do you want to be following the guidelines that are generalizable to the main person? Because, you know, we all know someone that happens. We also know someone that eats really super healthy and doesn't do well. Like we know all sorts of different types of things, but that's why we have science, thankfully. And science is imperfect. And I would say that nutrition science is probably the most complicated of all, because we're adding in the element of humanity and following, you know, like having to remember what we eat. And like, you know, like there's so many things that are so complicated with food that it's really hard to study. So ideally, we would have like the perfect situation would be, we have this very large population with mixed genetic backgrounds and mixed locations and all of that, all living together and being in a controlled trial for their entire lives and watching everything they ate and all the outcomes. But that's never going to happen, because who's going to fund that and who's going to sign up for that? So what do? We look at all we study epidemiology, we study randomized controlled trials, we study nutrients and biochemistry, we study stuff in a petri dish, we put all this stuff, we aggregate this preponderance of evidence, and you make conclusions based on all of these things. So we're basically extrapolating data as much as we can, we put it all together, we evolve the data, and then we make recommendations based on that. So if you want to look at your neighbor here or your cousin there, that's not going to give you a broad spectrum of evidence to make a decision on. And it's a really good question. It's a really good question. I get it all the time. And, you know, my answer is, you know, by the way, I stopped trying to convince anyone on what to eat. That was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Probably happened 10 years ago when I finally said, I don't want to beat my head against the wall. If you want to eat this way, I will love you all the way to get to this point so that you can enjoy eating this way. But, you know, trying to convince someone is impossible because they have to want it. And I always say that you could lead a human to healthy, but you can't make them eat. So I would say, yeah, maybe they got lucky. But if you look at the science, these are the conclusions that we make. And again, even like I said today, everyone has an opinion about food. Everyone's going to make different conclusions. And there's obviously not everyone is exactly on point. And things, you know, evolve and things are changed, but like you have to look at over time too. No one's going to argue at this point. I think I tweeted last week that there's 3 things that you can argue with. Fruits, and we all need to eat more fruits and vegetables. Nobody could really argue with that, or that less may be more. Like there's things that we really can't argue with because of all of this aggregation of long-term data. So my long answer is, or my short answer to all of that is, it's good to look at the overall preponderance of evidence rather than to make decisions based on what stories that you've heard.
Thank you, Julieanna. And up next, we have Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, if you'd go ahead and unmute yourself. Hi.
Thank you. Hi, Julie. Can you explain to me potatoes and who shouldn't be eating potatoes?
Who should not be eating potatoes?
Correct. On a whole food plant-based diet, who shouldn't be eating potatoes? I understand not to eat potatoes fried, but who shouldn't be eating potatoes? Or is it safe to eat potatoes?
Oh, I don't see anything wrong with eating potatoes. I don't know if you could see my kitchen over there. We got a pile of potatoes. I don't know if there's any client that I've ever had that I said to avoid potatoes. Do you have a specific reason you would avoid potatoes? I love potatoes.
I heard a lecture and the doctor had said that potatoes were not for consumption. Now, I thought maybe he meant French fries, which I would 100% agree, but I wasn't able to ask the question. So it was another presenter.
Yeah, I mean, if you're adding salt and oil like a French fry or potato chip, that's not a healthful food. But like I showed, it has an actual better amino acid profile than lean beef. It's rich in potassium and vitamin C, and it's in fact, I'm writing about this in my new book, one of the most satisfying foods, scientifically shown to be one of the most satisfying foods because it's just so satiating and delicious. And so I think they're wonderful staple foods. I eat them almost every single day. And I work with clients with all sorts of different health issues, and I can't think of anyone I wouldn't recommend unless they had an allergy, but they're also a very hypoallergenic food. I don't know anyone that's even allergic to potatoes. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head.